We're going live. I don't know if we are. Oh, it says you're live. So it looks like we're on air.
Awesome. Let me double check here, make sure I don't have my, yep, I do. I got to turn off my.
You got to turn your volume down?
Yeah, I got to flip that over. So, all right. So our last show of the year. Apologies for missing last week, but we had packed meetings last week at the time that this was going on. So I was unable to join.
Yeah. Yeah, we had packed. My wife had a baby, so it kind of kept me busy.
Yes, it
which
did.
is, of course, unexpected. Thank you, Debbie, for that. Much appreciated. Of course, Steve, this is our last episode of the year. We're not back till the first week of February.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I'm ready for a break.
Mm-hmm.
Recharge, refresh. You know, it seems like when we do this episode every week, sometimes there's more things to talk about than we can cover, and then other times there's not a lot happening, and it feels like kind of a stretch. But we've had a 2-week gap now, so we definitely have a few things to talk about today. Hey, Norm.
Yeah. Hey, Norm. Canada represented. Hans. Thank you.
Hey, Prashant.
That's right. I can't even see Prashant. I must have a bit of delay on. Oh, there he is. Yeah, he's there. He's with us. Yeah. So many things have happened. I've been up since 3 o'clock this morning, and what is it? It's 10 a.m. here now for me. I've been up since 3 a.m. And of course, all of you are thinking, it's because you have a baby. But no, I'm actually on contract, and I'm delivering training across Europe at the moment, and the US. And so, of course, I was delivering a course that I have delivered. This is the 4th or 5th time I've delivered it over the last 4 weeks. And the difference between last week and me delivering at the start of the week and this week is there's been all these name changes gone on. And so there I am talking about CDS, educating all these newcomers and going, shivers. Is CDS now Dataverse itself? Is what we couldn't, is CDS the wording dead? Yes. We're not using it anymore.
Yeah, they've already done a pretty thorough search and replace across all their assets. So we now have Dataverse and Dataverse for Teams.
Correct.
Same thing they were trying to do with DataFlex. So just same motion there. It's just
it was DataFlex Pro, wasn't it? And DataFlex we saw as a 2. Was it back then?
I don't know if Pro ever actually was pushed out there. I think it was just DataFlex or DataFlex for Teams, but now it's Dataverse. Is CDS, and Dataverse for Teams is that one. The name's fine. There was a bunch of people immediately as soon as they heard the name out there talking about, wait, Harvard is using this.
Correct.
Well, I happen to be, in PAC, and Alyssa Taylor, who's responsible for naming, I shot her a little Teams message during one of our meetings saying, I assume this name is fully vetted and there won't be any challenges. And then I put something like Harvard ?
Yeah.
And she sent back a thumbs up.
Yeah.
So that tells me they're fully aware of whatever Harvard was doing with that name, maybe made some sort of an arrangement or something, but it sounds like that name will be around. So good news there.
Yeah, very good. Very good. Well, thank you everybody for your congratulations. Good to see so many joined us today on air for the final show, just around that naming. So, as I said, I was doing this training all these folks. And then I started getting caught up because I was training them on three things. Well, really 6 things, but like a couple of core things was building PowerApps and building Canvas apps. And so I was taking them through building a model-driven app, and I was taking them through building a Canvas app. And of course, all of a sudden, here I am talking about fields, and I'm going, sugars. Hang on, entities. Back that up. And I'm trying to juggle all this, old thinking and stuff, and trying to use the correct. And it's a struggle for us that have been doing it for a while because, it's a final show of the year. It's the next show is back in February next year. So the struggle has been. Is totally when when I teach and I'm in the flow, right? It just flows literally. And then the problem is that these words and these ways of doing things, it's almost like creates a total ping in your brain that disrupts that kind of flow when you've got to be thinking, hang on, this is not a field, this is a column. This
Yeah.
is, this is not an entity. I've got to refer to tables.
And it's
Yeah.
actually terminology we may have used a long time ago, pre-Dynamics.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
for all the time we've been in Dynamics, I remember having to learn the Dynamics terminology. We came over from Salesforce. But then once you learn it, it becomes kind of ingrained, and now to have to switch. I mean, you're going to find yourself for years to come still calling them entities and fields and attributes and records.
Yeah. I do feel it is a temporary thing. Like it's we will slowly switch. I just know I've got to go update all my presentation decks to use all the new nomenclature.
I'll tell you, they've done a pretty good job, Microsoft has, of quickly rolling out these changes. I mean, we're seeing on the DL, the MVP DL, where some MVP is found, hey, it still says CDS in this obscure sub page of a link down in the bottom corner. But for the most part, I mean, entities are gone. Attributes, fields are gone. These things have really just almost like they never existed.
Yeah, it's like a find and replace, right? Site-wide.
Yeah.
Swip it out. Same with the word Oakdale, right? Project Oakdale would have all been find and replaced.
Yep.
And
now you listen to them talk about it. They're using these terms as though that's always what they've been known at. There's not anybody saying, so when you build a table, which used to be called entity, they're just saying build a table. So I wonder about. I mean, at least us that are probably listening to us here and us in the business, pay attention to this. But I wonder how this is for a citizen developer out there who suddenly gets up one morning and goes and logs in and everything's called something different. He has no clue why. He hasn't been involved in he doesn't even know what the hell's going on. Just suddenly he's sitting there looking at his drop-down list in Maker, for his entity and not able to find it because it's now called table and nobody told him.
Well, that's the thing, right? He's just fallen off that cliff.
Yeah, right. Yes.
Of course,
thanks,
I'm referring to your post that
made
went
mention of
nuts.
my post. Yeah, Mount Stupid. Yeah, it was an interesting. I was following a conversation on Twitter. Didn't have anything to do with our business, but it was about that Dunning-Kruger, and I'm looking at that graph and I'm thinking that is citizen developer all day long. That's just, I run into that person continuously in my experience now, and the reason I've talked about Microsoft is marching people up to the peak of Mount Stupid is because they're the ones out there making it sound easy and giving Joe Blow out there an inflated level of confidence.
Yeah.
And he knows absolutely nothing at all, but Microsoft has made him feel very confident. And I think you made a comment on LinkedIn or Twitter on that post pointing people to the expressions for flow, which are just going to blow any of those people's minds.
Yeah, exactly. As in people that think that they have it sussed. I mean, the minute they go and see the expression library and they're like, oh my gosh, that kind of does look like, to a layman, that looks like programming. It might be expression, but it looks like programming to me. You got a bunch of formulas, a bunch of math by the look, and it looks like programming.
To be honest, I think in the long run for SIs anyway, this will be fine. I think we're going to have a whole bunch of people out there. We're in that phase right now where they're all still climbing to the top of Mount Stupid.
Yeah.
But they're gonna realize that they didn't know what they didn't know, and start figuring out what they didn't know and realize how deep that is of what they don't know. And then they're going to be having to turn back to partners.
Yeah.
And our business model is just going to change from talking to a customer about building something to talking to a customer about fixing something. Making something work, making something scalable, making something enterprise grade, all those sorts of things that I think ultimately we'll probably all end up fine. But right now we're in that mode where everybody thinks they can do anything themselves. They can solve the most complex business problem without any knowledge whatsoever. Microsoft has eliminated the need for all of your years of knowledge on the platform. No longer needed. So, well, we'll see.
Time will tell. I don't know, and it'll be interesting to throw this out to the audience there. One of the little nuances I've come across in a Canvas app, you're up in the formula bar and you type in a formula and you separate things with commas. And then, I've had a bunch of students on from Germany and they have semicolons instead. And of course, if they've got a lab example they're working through, that really confuses everybody. But like, I'm surprised that that character nuance is in there.
Is it like a translation?
But like a translation of a character on a keyboard, not like an alphanumeric character, but it's using a semicolon instead of a colon.
Interesting.
Sorry, instead of a comma. My bad.
Ninja's saying it's a regional thing, but I would have thought code is code. And there isn't regional variations of code, but maybe I guess the expression bar maybe isn't code.
Yeah, so as in I see EY is saying that there, but it's very hard when you're training folks, as in when you're training a lot of folks, and I'm saying, I'm getting up to 60 people on one of my sessions at a time. And yeah, it's definitely a European thing.
Yeah, so in other news, another interesting thing that popped up here quite recently, the launch of the Microsoft Healthcare Cloud.
Mm-hmm.
So Microsoft essentially, we've kind of seen this pattern in progression. I'm kind of curious where it's going to end up, but I don't like the direction it's heading. They launched these they launched these industry accelerators a couple of years ago and have continued building some additional accelerators. And I smelled something fishy as soon as they started doing that whole motion. I didn't like it. And the way it was presented was, well, this is a platform for ISVs. This is for ISVs to be able to build solutions where all of you guys can be using the same data model. Instead of creating all of your own data models, you can all share the same data model. And it'll be awesome for ISVs. And I thought, well, yeah, maybe you haven't known ISVs to work that closely together, or cooperate that well. But there certainly were some ISVs that did go down the path, and some folks that used that as a way to become ISV was, hey, I've got an accelerator here to start with. And the first problem I had when they launched those accelerators was the sample apps. I thought, why are you building a sample app? If this is for an ISV, why does he need your sample app on a data model? I mean, he's an ISV. He understands the data model. Just give him the data model and get out of the way. But they built these sample apps, and I thought,
So one of the problems was, of course, right? There's no way to move a data model into an environment outside of an app. Right? They still haven't solved that part of the story. You can't have a data model. In other words, columns, tables, etc., relationships within a database without those columns and tables going in there via the creation of an app.
So they did release in GitHub the solution files unmanaged that you could import of the data model. So you could get the data model in without their app.
Without any app?
Yeah, it's been a while since we tried it. Because when they first launched them, of course, they were all hardwired to all of their first party stuff, and you pretty much had to have a full customer engagement plan license to even use them. They did come back and unwind that on them to where they would run on CDS, and that's when we took a look at it. And I remember installing it from GitHub, the data model, and I don't recall it bringing in the sample apps or having to have an app, but I could be wrong.
I'm not certain.
This sample apps was kind of a seed that I didn't like the whole idea of the sample app because I saw where it was going to potentially go. And so now here we are. They've taken the healthcare accelerator and converted it into a healthcare cloud product that is full of apps for all sorts of healthcare related things. It's $95 a month. This is a product that people buy and pay for, built off of that model with a whole bunch of apps. And to add kind of insult to injury to that, they've now deprecated the accelerators. So Wow. How would you like to be those
So
people
here's
that,
what I find interesting. You and I had a discussion a year and a half ago when one of the listeners to this show went through the T's and C's of creating an app and particularly a data model. And in the T's and C's, it said that Microsoft, if you came along from an industry and you built a data model, they own the data model. You don't
Yep.
own it anymore, Mr. Customer. That's
Yep.
our IP as well. No,
Yep.
and it's right down on the fine print. And remember, you and I had a discussion. You're just like, oh no, it's just nuances of conversation, etc. Nah, they wouldn't mean anything by it. But here we are, played forward a year and a half, and all that contribution from the community around the data model and what is the correct ways in the medical industry to classify things, etc. Thank you very much. We're going to build an app out of that.
Yep,
Thank you.
exactly.
Goodbye. You know?
We appreciate the domain expertise that we did not have.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for that. And now we'll convert this into a paid product.
Yep.
And go sell it. And we're going to deprecate the model. You're welcome to continue to use the old model, but it won't be advanced anymore, meaning it's a dead end road.
Yep.
And this is the first. They're going to take every one of those accelerators and convert them into clouds.
Well, as soon as they identify that, well, if they haven't already, a big market opportunity behind it, right?
I don't know how big it would need to be. I mean, they identified a big enough market opportunity to build the accelerators in the first place. The next logical step, I think that the key will be whether or not, yes, Danny, I do think all the other accelerators are going to follow the exact same path. The only reason they wouldn't is that nobody buys the healthcare cloud.
Yeah.
But I can tell you,
you know what? They wouldn't have gone to all that investment without some marquee customers already lined up to pay the bills.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, and for Microsoft, to go into a large healthcare organization and say, we've got an accelerator for your industry is not as compelling as, and what their problem was, is Salesforce going to that same customer saying, oh, we've got a finished cloud offering for your industry.
Correct.
The accelerator is like a do-it-yourself kit. And that wasn't, so taking it to the next level of here's a finished, cloud application for your industry is absolutely going to be easier to sell.
Totally. And you know what? They've now got the framework set up that they can progressively do this to more and more verticals, right? They've got the full framework in place to do this.
So in talking to the team that did that recently, and challenging, I challenged them straight up about you guys just elbowed a whole bunch of ISVs right in the gut with your move. And their response, which I don't feel was particularly genuine, was, oh no, there's plenty of ISV opportunity around the healthcare cloud. Well, there may be, but what they've done is they spent the last several years telling all of us, ISVs and SIs alike, to go into a vertical, get vertical. Well, now they're moving themselves into the largest area of the vertical. And what they're not telling us, but what the reality is, that what's left for us is the sub vertical.
Yeah.
It won't be a healthcare vertical. Now you're going to have to get deep into a sub vertical within healthcare in order to have a play. And then think about this. We were talking this a little before the show. They've already shown that if they see opportunity, they will build an app and go directly into that with their own paid product. So if you identify a sub vertical that turns out to be a very lucrative, large sub vertical, how long before Microsoft, just covers that one? So we're left with, we need to find a sub vertical that is big enough to support an ISV. But not so big that it'll ever get on Microsoft's radar. But the problem there is you'll end up having all the ISVs will be looking for those nuggets, give me a skinny sub vertical that I can own. So there'll be 4 or 5 ISVs trying to own this skinny little sub vertical, which the market isn't big enough for more than 1 or 2 ISVs.
Yeah. But hasn't that been the way things have been done for some time, right? ever since MCS, Microsoft Consulting Services came in, they came in and were competing against partner because they didn't find partner were executing enough or at a velocity high enough for the game, right? And perhaps in the same situation, Microsoft are going, you know what? We're not seeing partners step up to the plate. We're going to have to do it ourselves. We're going to have to resource up. And I think in the past, Microsoft didn't resource up as quickly from a global perspective, but now their whole infrastructure is fully designed to work anywhere, right? So now they're going, you know what? We can actually stand these resources up ourselves. We've streamlined our HR recruitment processes. We can bring these people on. We can blue badge them. We can get them to build exactly what we want. We don't have to get an interpretation from a customer. And if we don't have the skills, we just buy them in and they become part of our IP pool. So I think it's, you know, it's a double-edged thing in that, you know, partners haven't executed to the speed they needed. And so they've gone direct to market. All they have to do is look at Google, Salesforce, AWS, all these crowds have never depended on partners. They've always gone direct to customer and they're very successful in doing that. You know, Apple would be another one in that pool. So I think they're going, you know what, we've got the big partner side. We've done very well off that. It was really good in establishing our business. But, you know, I think Prashant alluded to in the chat there, will that be their future? You know, as in, will it be Microsoft in 20 years' time? Will it be so partner-centric? I don't know. Of course, they tell partners it will be because partners want to hear that. They're not going to say to partners, nah, see you later, goodbye. You know, we don't need you, because at the moment they do, but I think they're hedging their bets more and more that they don't need the partners so much.
I mean, I did kind of cover that counter side in the post that I wrote last week about where they were going with this cloud and accelerators. In that, I mean, if I'm Microsoft and I'm out here talking to big healthcare organizations about our accelerator, and customers are saying, "Oh, that's nice. What ISV solutions do you have?" Well, we've got a couple here and a couple there, and they're looking at them, and Microsoft is seeing a big opportunity that no ISV really stood up and took. So what are they expected to do? Microsoft just expected to let Salesforce have it? No, I don't blame them for moving into a space where partners weren't moving fast enough and Salesforce was. Like, you got to do it. I mean, it's business is business, you know. What I struggle with is where I feel they're not being entirely genuine with partners about their motivations and their plans and what they're doing here. You know, so you launched a healthcare cloud application finished app. Why would you then deprecate the data model and stop advancing it? If you weren't wanting to then kind of block partners from following you, you just leave it out there. Continue to advance it as you're using it for your healthcare cloud and you make advances to the data model, push them back to the GitHub model and keep that thing alive. And there's no reason to deprecate and stop building on it other than you want to close a gate behind you.
Yep.
Which I don't like that idea.
Yep.
Telling
that's
us
what it is, right? That's what it is.
I mean, telling us that there's tons of ISV opportunity around the healthcare cloud when you know it's just a smattering of crumbs. You know, it's a bunch of crumbs that are really left there, and that's what will be left in all of these. So I just don't. I mean, but I can also see, to your point, they're not at a point with partners where they could come out and say, "Look, guys, we saw an opportunity, and we can make some money. So fuck you. You know, we moved. You know, if you don't like it, we don't give a fuck.
Buttercup, right?
Yeah, we don't care."
And Debbie's just said there, you know, about these increases in fees, and you know, you've talked about the $15,000 support agreement being in play, and we've discussed on the show before, there seems to be, you know, my dad always taught me, don't listen to what people say, listen to what they do. They can say as much as they want. That's what they're saying that they want you to believe, but actually watch what they do. And this is what I find, what we're observing now is Microsoft saying one thing, but really clearly doing something else. And either we can choose, you know what, we're going to listen to what you say and believe you, or we can go, actually, all the signs, everything that you're doing, all the actions that you're taking don't indicate that that is what you're doing. And I think that part of these changes are the 80-20 rule is kicking into effect with Microsoft partners. For Microsoft, they're going 20% of our partners are producing 80% of our revenue, and 80% of our partners are producing sorry, and yeah, 80% are producing 20% of all the headaches that we're getting, right?
Yep.
And so why don't we up the stakes to play the game? So we're going to put in, you know, $300,000 as a benchmark of contribution from a license fees perspective. We're going to put in a $15,000, you know, buy-in, you know, here's your buy-in, $15,000 to get on the table, because we want to know if you've got the chops to play the game. And if you don't, you know what? We're not saying we don't want you. We're just saying we don't have a table for you in this casino, right? There's nowhere for you to play.
Yeah, exactly. We don't have any penny slots. They've all been replaced with $50 slot machines. And if you don't have it, you can't play. Well, Debbie, we'll circle back to your point in a minute, because I know you're actually talking about something a little different there. But to what Mark is talking about, you know, I talked to someone very senior at Microsoft. I don't want to mention the name because I don't want to drag her in, but about this whole motion of this $15,000, because we're a direct CSP. I paid that $15,000 last year. We didn't open a single ticket because we're very focused on what we're doing, and we know what we're doing. We don't really need Microsoft support.
Yeah.
We didn't need them the entire time. So for me, it was clearly nothing but a tax. And when I brought that up, I was told that we should really look at it like insurance. Well, again, that felt a little disingenuous to me too, you know, because I don't know, you know, I've got a history of not using, but I also know that amongst the direct CSPs, there's lots of different kinds of people out there. There may be some that lean very heavy on support. They're not gonna, it's not worth their effort to create a granular program and say, oh, you only do this and you don't create any ticket. You know, I mean, it's not. But I would rather see, fine, then how about this? I can't open any tickets if I haven't paid the support.
That's it.
The very first time I've got to open a big ass ticket to solve a big ass problem.
You put your credit card in and you pay for it up front, right?
Yeah, I mean, if I ever need to use support, fine, I'll pay $15,000 for that ticket and a year's worth after. But if I don't need it, and certainly the raising the revenue from 100,000 to 300,000 to remain CSP is obviously a move to eliminate partners that aren't selling enough. They haven't eliminated the ability to sell license to your customers. They've just eliminated this particular channel to sell customers, and instead are saying, you know, go through Disty, which last time I was working with Disty on CSP, it was a clusterfuck. I am hearing from some partners, because I've pinged the community on this, that it's not as bad as it was. So that's good. But in our particular case, we've been pushing people off the expensive licenses down to the lower cost PowerApps licenses at a pretty good clip. So the margin just isn't really there to be that worried about licenses anymore. I can remember a time when, man, I wanted to sell that license. I'd be in with another partner, they'd want to sell the license, and they'd bring us in for Dynamics, and I'd want to sell the Dynamics license because then there was money made out of it. So it'd be this little tug of war.
CSA fees?
Yeah, sure. CSA.
I think my biggest year, I pulled over $1 million in CSA fees.
There was money.
That was serious cash, man.
There was some serious cash, but now, you know, there's just not enough revenue. They've gradually, and you talk about kind of moving away from dependency on partners. That's part of it. I mean, they've just cut those margins to where there's just not that much money to be made on the licenses anymore. So pivoting over to what Debbie's asking about is on the fast track. So we were one of the pilots in the partner version of Fast Track. And, you know, Fast Track for Dynamics is a program Microsoft launched a while ago that if you were of a certain size business, they would do your on-premise to online migration. I think it was probably 300 grand at the time of spend in order to get Fast Track. And if you didn't meet that, you couldn't use Fast Track. Well, essentially, Fast Track is just a process of copying a database up through versions. You know, it's they're able to do it behind the scene. They can copy that SQL database.
And automate all the bits behind it, right?
You'd go through each version from where you were and do a test to make sure that your IP and whatever customizations still work, and then work yourself up to the latest version. But the difference between the back-end fast track being able to literally push a button and copy the SQL database behind your online instance from one to another versus the only other way you have to do it, which is to go out and get a tool like Kingsway, deal with all that mapping. It's just
Build it all,
a massive amount of effort that they can solve literally with a button push.
Yeah.
So several of us had been lobbying for quite some time about we need to be able to use fast track.
Yep.
And that's what came to this program of, okay, we're gonna launch a version of fast track for partners where you guys will do all the work. We're still going to be involved, but we're basically just going to push the button when you say push it.
Yep.
So we're not going to consult with a customer. We're not going to help them with architecture. We're not going to try and upsell them shit. We're not going to do anything.
Yep.
You run the whole project directly with the customer and call us up when you want us to push the button, and we'll push a button to copy the database up to the next version, and you call us up for the next one. That's the process.
Yep.
And when they were launching that in pilot, there was no limit on the customer size.
Mm-hmm.
That it was since they weren't doing any of the work, they didn't care. So the real news here, Debbie, is that they created $100,000 minimum for partner led fast track. So
yep.
that's the challenge. Interestingly, though, in the same post, they said if you're less than $100,000, customers can use fast track as a self-service tool. How the fuck are they going to do that? Can you imagine some customer, if they're less than 100,000, they're obviously a smaller customer. How are they going to possibly figure out how to use this tool? I can tell you, having used the tooling ourselves, it's not an easy process. You know, copying the database, there's a bunch of stuff from on-premise, stored procedures, all kinds of crap that will not go across. All got to be rebuilt. Yeah. And customers just going to have no idea how to get there. So I don't know if there's anything blocking a partner from helping a customer that's under 100,000.
So I see this differently. So what I see and what Debbie's saying there is Microsoft, you said the best benchmark for fast track was 300K, right? That means partners up to 300K, fair game. That's your business. Yep. Now they've said, we're going to come down to 100K. So we just take that 200K on the top. That's now ours. Thank you. Now partners, you have 100K that you can play with. You know, and the thing is that you look at any manufacturing, you don't reckon. That's the way I read that. That's the way I read that. That's what it meant.
But that's not what it meant, actually, because I saw the post, and essentially you still need over 300K if you want Microsoft to do your fast track. But they've got this concept now of a fast track.
For how long?
Huh?
For how long? So listen, if you look at manufacturing, right? If you look at manufacturing and you tool up and you create a new wizardy product, right? That first product costs a lot of money, right? Because you had to do all the tooling and everything. You had to work out all the kinks. But the 100th or the 1,000th or 1 millionth product of that, you're now down to cents, right? Like they said that Windows back in the day, I remember seeing a figure that the cost to produce Windows, if you distributed the cost across every single deployment of Windows, it came down to like 30 cents or something, right? Yeah. Because the more that buy, the more that's distributed across. I said to my wife, you know, we need to have a couple more babies with this IVF thing, because then it distributes the cost of my one daughter costing me $20,000. And if I have 3 kids, it's now, you know, it spreads the cost of that. I'm probably going to get in trouble for that analogy.
Yes, you've just revealed your motivation for the first child.
So what I'm saying is that Microsoft has spent all the effort now in perfecting this process of doing these migrations. It's a no-brainer for them to go, you know what?
But here's the difference. Here's the difference. They don't charge anything. So their motivation here,
but it's not about charge. It's not about charge. It's about the actual pull through of licensing in the cloud. There's the stickiness of this is no longer, you know, you take China, for example, how much illegal software is potentially running in China in on-premise environments of Dynamics, as let's be specific, that Microsoft can't account for, because it's so easy to duplicate and copy that, right? And license it and license key it and that type of thing. The minute you go to cloud, nobody can cheat with cloud. Nobody can cheat on the licenses. So it's a no-brainer to move the entire world off on-prem software into the cloud. So like the payroll's long.
I actually see it potentially going the opposite direction because, yeah, Microsoft, the goal of this whole fast track is to get people from on-prem to the cloud. That's the entire goal. They don't charge anything for doing that,
Yeah.
but it's a significant amount of work for someone, whether the partner or Microsoft, to do. And as a partner, of course, we would charge to do that work. Microsoft will do it for free if you're over 300 grand. Well, as partners get more proficient at doing that, since it's not a revenue motion for Microsoft, I'd see Microsoft raising that 300,000 instead of lowering it, to where if you want
Why?
us to
Because
do your
their
migration,
cost to do it though is dropping at the same rate.
yeah, but it's gone if they have partners do it. Just let the partners do it. Again, it's not a revenue generator.
How many times have you been in an engagement and they've said, we want Microsoft to have skin in the game? All enterprise ideal, they don't care what the partner is. Heck, you could get sold on the stock exchange next week and be gone and be a nobody. What happened to my
Yeah,
company in Australia?
but if I'm talking to a customer right now on premise with 200,000 who wants Microsoft to have skin in the game, they don't have an option. They
Yeah,
don't get them in the game anyway. You got to have
yeah,
300
valid.
grand if you want Microsoft to have skin in the game. So that's just not even an option. So as partners get more proficient at, well, for one thing, this is going to eventually over time be, on premise will be gone eventually anyway. So the whole thing
Mm-hmm.
is temporary. I don't know how temporary, how long it'll last, but at Microsoft, they just opened up the ability for a whole bunch of other customers below 300,000 to more easily migrate. I mean,
Right.
we're doing the Florida Marlins baseball team migration using Fast Track right now, and we had there was some question about whether or not they were going to qualify, and we actually got them qualified because of us being a pilot in that program at the time. It was before they were kind of lowering the thresholds, and it's probably ended up saving them 30 or 40% of the cost of the migration from on-premise to
Yeah.
online. Just because of that, again, being able to push a button and copy that database. There's still a lot of work with stored, a lot of work to be done, but it absolutely saved a significant chunk of money that, to be honest, at the original price quoted to them for a migration without Fast Track, they were
Mm-hmm.
not going to do it. They were going to stay on premise.
Yeah.
The savings of Fast Track was the key for them to actually move to online. So for Microsoft, it's a very important tool, and
Yeah.
getting it beyond the hands of just Microsoft and into partners to be able to use this big cost saving tool to get you up is that's an obvious move from them. But as partners get even more proficient, I think this is a game Microsoft would just soon get out of, as long as enough partners are moving all of these deployments on premise to online. Fine, we've jump started that motion. We're not making any money on it. We're not selling the service. So let's let partners do this service we weren't getting paid for, as long as the result is the same. Customers
Yeah.
get moved from on-premise to online. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them raise that 300K over time, to where if you want Microsoft to do your Fast Track, you need to have at least 500,000, a million. Really narrow it down on the biggest partners. But
Yeah.
we'll see.
We'll see. We'll see. We'll see.
So what else we got here people are talking about, since you and I are going to agree to disagree on that one? Do I suggest Fast Track always for migration? I'll tell you what, once you get familiar with the tool set, Fast Track, again, if you had the ability,
It's a
and I don't know
no-brainer.
how long, I don't know how long, Med, who you've been around, but in the on-premise days, if you wanted to move environments, you had access to that SQL database. You just made a copy of it.
Yeah.
You go and install it on the new environment. If it didn't work, you go fix what you need to fix and then copy it again. You just keep copying it, fixing and copying until you get it right. It's the same work you have to do in any other migration project anyway. The big difference here is you don't have to go through this whole third-party migration, think Kingsway Soft or any of these other tools out here that are designed to do these migrations, and you get into these massive challenges with activities and history and all kinds of crap in one of those migrations. The mapping is just a massive headache. All that's gone when you're just copying the database. So I know we've done lots of migrations in the past, and one of the things we'd always ask the customer is, do you really need all this data? You know, we try and get them to limit the data. Well, if you're copying the database, we don't even care. Yes, the databases are in some cases huge. So Debbie, good point. So we do have customers that may limit what they're going to migrate, even using Fast Track, just because, you know, what wasn't costing them anything, either partner hosted or on their own premises, you know, now suddenly has a pretty big cost associated to it. So yeah, depending on the databases, we are still seeing people want to limit what they move over.
Totally. I mean, in the early days of cloud, the size of some of the on-prem databases were absolutely eye-watering.
Yeah, because there was no reason not to be.
Exactly. But now I think, you know, good practice is an archiving process. You might archive it over to a data lake, so you're not losing the data. It's still accessible if you need to retrieve it at some point, but really keeping it out of your core day-to-day business system. If that data is no longer relevant to your operating model of right now, it's better to put it in low-cost storage than keep it in high-cost location.
With the smaller businesses, you know, mid-size and smaller businesses, I don't know how many times I've had that conversation where, oh, we need to migrate everything, all of the history. I'm like, you need a 10-year-old email to be migrated? Yeah, we need everything. We need everything. Okay, and I come back, okay, here's the storage cost. You know, I guess we don't need all that. And, you know, there's this sudden realization when you stick a price tag on that history, then they really think they look at that history and they think, yeah, you're right. You know, 10-year-old email, who needs that? That's just stupid. You know, wait a minute, you're the one who said it was critical to have. And now they're saying, no, we don't need anything. And now suddenly they're like, do we really need email over a month old? You know, they go all the way the other direction as soon as you stick a price tag on it.
Yeah. It's funny.
I mean, that's just like development projects, right? You get a whole list of requirements. And in our case, we use kind of a t-shirt size model, right? Well, we'll have this whole list of requirements. We'll put small, medium, large, because, you know, we don't do anything fixed price. It's all just order of magnitude. And you always start with these customers that these are all critical. Absolutely. Everything above this green line has to be done in phase one. No way we can't launch without it. And then you come back with these t-shirt sizes and suddenly all the large items are dropped below that line. Wait a minute, I thought this was critical, had to have. Well, you know, everything's critical until you stick a price tag on it.
Until you put a price on it. So true. Hey, Bruce.
I'm not sure what Bruce is clapping at, but.
No, he's waving. He's saying hi.
Oh, is that a wave?
Yeah, I'd say so. Just join us.
Hey, Bruce.
Interesting. I'd be interested to get some feedback from all the knowledgeable folks online here. I'm about to build a new computer. When I say build it, therefore select, you know, I feel after 10 years of operating just from a laptop, with the way the world's going, our government has just said our borders are not going to open for at least another 18 months. So therefore there's going to be no travel. And I've got a Surface Pro 2 book, but it's running as slow as a dog after, I don't know, 3 years of using it now. And what I've realized, I won't be buying Surface products in a hurry because they've really become the Apple of the world, right? They have a high premium price tag for what you get and use. You know, the tablet function or the ability to disconnect the tablet on this, I've used it to show people that it can do it, never used it for any business purpose whatsoever. So I'm like, you know what? From now on, my laptop is, you know, my future laptops are just going to be as much bang for a buck from a processing and RAM perspective. Good screen, that's all I need. But everything else, I'm going to build a desktop machine, right? And so I'm wanting to build something that's nice and grunty that will allow us to stream off this type of thing in future and better quality. Put all my, you know, I've got a whole room being set up for my studio for recording and stuff like that. So if there's any recommendations out there around, you know, building a PC, what are your must-haves around anything from, you know, whether you choose AMD over Intel, what, you know, minimum RAM specs, are you going for 32 gig RAM or 100 gig these days? Is it M.2 for storage now? Just amazing stuff, the blazing speeds, best graphic card. Maybe it might get used for gaming a bit as well.
I was just going to say, I'll share with you my path because I was similarly using a Surface Pro and I had the dock and I bought one of those adapters that allow me to run the 3 27-inch monitors I have in front of me and have forever. I ran those off the Surface and a keyboard. And the nice thing about it was, when you're going to head out of town, you just fold that thing up, unplug it from the dock, stick it in your bag, and everything was with you. You always had all of your stuff with you, whether you were traveling or not. But when it just seemed like it was a little sluggish for some of the things I was trying to do. And this is actually well before the virus hit, but the virus certainly would be a good excuse. I just say, you know what, I'm going to use that just for traveling. And I'm going to get a desktop because most of the time I was sitting at the desk. I wasn't traveling most of the time. I was mostly at the desk. So I went out and bought a gaming machine.
Okay.
Because those gaming.
But you didn't build it yourself, right? You just built it stock.
I
feel it's cheating. Like I used to build all my own computers, and I feel it's cheating. I feel like I've got to build it myself.
Well, if you want to do it for fun, that's a different story. But I don't think there's not a lot of upside there, or I don't think necessarily even savings. I think that
no, it's no savings, definitely not. No.
Yeah, and you can go on. So I have an Alien, which is made by, I think it's Dell's gaming brand, and I mean you can order the machine the way you want it. So they've got some standard package machines, but then you can go in and say, I want to upgrade any component in it, which is kind of like building it, only you don't have to build it. And then it's all covered under warranty. And, I don't know about, I mean, Dell here at least has in-home support if I have problems with it. But huge difference. Now the only problem is when I do pick up my Surface to go, I'm thinking I'm going to go out Starbucks, grab a cup of coffee, maybe bring my Surface with me, and I plug into their Wi-Fi, and it takes, more than the time I'm there just to synchronize all the shit since the last time I used it. Since I don't use it now, it just sits there. OneDrive's trying to synchronize, the freaking inbox, the mail inbox is trying to synchronize, a month of email crap.
So I don't have that issue. I work on a model once a month. At the end of the month, I do a tidy up routine where I archive. I operate a zero inbox right now. If I look at my inbox, I've got one email that came in about 3 hours ago. I'll action that, then I'll be done. And so what I do is once a month is I take all my deleted items, archived items, and sent items that are over a month old, and I archive them off and I put them into, a PST file and chuck it up into OneDrive. I've been doing that for 10 years because one day I might just need to go back and retrieve that email, right? Just on the conversation we had. Have I ever gone back and opened up one of those PST files from the last 10 years? I've got about 10 gig, probably more, I haven't looked, of PST files, for my last 10 years, just in case one day, who knows? But what I'm saying is that what I've done now is that what I do is I have a work in progress file, so a WIP folder. I have that hyperlinked on my desktop as a shortcut to my OneDrive, and that is the only folder I sync. So it's only got my work in progress right now. So when I'm out, it's only ever syncing what's in that folder, nothing else. And that saves me heaps of synchronization time.
I'm synchronizing to OneDrive for Business, almost everything on my machine except apps. Including my desktop. My desktop and all the icons on my desktop, that's all synced there. Photos, files, everything is synced up there. And that was with the idea that once I switched to having two devices, that I could get to those things from that other device. Again, without the travel, it hasn't come up very much. But when I look at my Outlook, I've got probably a dozen email accounts that are associated for different things that I'm in. But just looking at my Steve for ForceWorks inbox, I have one unread message. I feel pretty good about that. But in that box, there are 87,000 items.
Nuts, man, nuts.
87,000. But it doesn't impact me because all I'm really looking at
until you go for a Starbucks coffee, then it fucks up your coffee. Well, because you're waiting for it to download and sync.
Well, no, actually, it's only downloading the Delta, right? Because
it's obviously enough though that it stops you enjoying your coffee because the emails don't come down on time. You're just saying. Well,
like you say, if you're archiving stuff over a month old, if a month worth of email downloading on your laptop is going to take the entire time of that coffee. Just downloading a month of email, much less. But there's 86,000 items in there.
They're not in your inbox, are they? They're not in your inbox.
Yeah, they're in my inbox items.
You have 86,000 in inbox.
Yeah,
Wow.
in the inbox.
Wow, that's nuts, man.
Yep.
No, I prefer to run at 0, eh? Well, I don't say I always have. I have for the last 10 years now run 0. Try to clean it out every day.
I try and run a 0 unread. That's my method, 0 unread. Well, but you know, I'll go in here and I mean my inbox, I'll go in here and search for somebody in the inbox and be able to pull up emails from 5 years.
Yeah.
That I haven't talked to them in 5 years, be able to pull up that 5-year-old inbox or email from them.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen that often.
There's actually a bit of cloud software out there that I had a mate in WA that did this all the time, Jace, and what he would do is put all his Outlook PSTs in this cloud location, and it then just makes them 100% searchable. So he'd have a credentialed account, paid for that, that service as such, and therefore, if he ever needed to find an email from way back beyond, he could just jump on, log into there, search for it, find it, and then extract it out.
I see Allison's comment kind of aligning with yours, just delete them all, but
I don't delete, I archive them away from Outlook.
But I don't see where it's hurting me. I mean, they're all stored locally as well as in the cloud. There's 86,000 of them, but it's not like it has to load 86,000 messages every time I open Outlook. I don't know what archiving them off would gain for me. What would I gain from that? Speed? No, they're already there. So I'm not sure what the gain is. A peace of mind, maybe?
Clean mind. A clean mind, not peace. Clean mind.
Okay, well, I didn't
I was
feel
just
mine
looking,
was dirty.
I was going to mention Evernote before because, that was another company that Microsoft joint ventured with Accenture, to address the lack of Microsoft partners being able to do something. And I was just looking at the Wikipedia article. That's 20-year-old business now and currently does over 2 billion a year as of 2016. Evernote, not Accenture, it's just Evernote. And Evernote was set up, of course, just to implement Microsoft tech, as a partner. I don't know if Microsoft still has any ownership. They're generally they were the founders with Accenture, but I don't know where that stands now.
Yeah, I mean, talk about Microsoft moving into partner turf. There'd be one fell swoop. They could just say, you know what, partners, it's been a fun ride, but we're just going to buy Avanade.
Hasta la vista.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for all your years of support.
40,000 plus employees around the world.
Yep.
So it's a sizable practice or two, isn't it?
Yeah, Debbie's asking if they own Avanade, but they did a joint venture with Avanade for Accenture, right? Wasn't Accenture a joint venture of Avanade?
No, it was a founder. It was Microsoft and Accenture were the founders. Like if you go and have a look just look up Avanade Wiki, it says here, founded in April the 4th, 2020, 20 years ago. The founders of the company were Accenture and Microsoft.
Oh, so I had it the other way around. So Avanade is the joint venture between Accenture and Microsoft.
That's it.
Yeah.
They operate worldwide, headquartered in Seattle. Pamela's the current CEO. They do digital marketing and IT service and IT consulting is their kind of services, broad services that they run in.
Do we have any Avanade MVPs?
We did. Remember, I don't know if you remembered Ron Lehman. He was definitely an Avanade MVP in Melbourne when I first moved to Australia from memory. Or maybe I was visiting Australia and I met up, probably more likely visiting Australia.
I was just curious whether because of the Microsoft joint venture that they weren't MVPs or anything like that.
Well, there's Accenture MVPs.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the same type of thing. And here's the thing. I don't know whether Microsoft exited the relationship. In other words, Accenture bought them out. I'm just trying to see if that's on the Wikipedia because it's very clear they are founders, but I don't know if that's still the case.
Well, 40,000 employees is a lot, but compared to the number of employees times 600,000 Microsoft partners is significantly more. You're talking about of Microsoft partner employees across the globe. I mean, it's got to be millions.
Well, you take DXC. DXC is what?
Yeah.
300,000 employees or so.
Yeah, just with one. Yeah. So you add up all yeah. So I don't think they could replace their partner channel with Avanade.
No. You'd need quite a bit more than that. And I don't, and of course, I doubt that's ever their goal. I think that within Microsoft, they've got Microsoft Consulting Service as well, right? Their last count, and this was like from 7 years ago, I think MCS was over 25,000 employees 7 years ago. So, that could easily be 50, 60,000 now.
Yeah. Well, what's their total employee accounts? What, 130,000?
Microsoft?
Yeah.
Not sure.
So that'd be a pretty good percentage in MCS if it was that many. But
I would thought Microsoft was bigger than that. Now, I haven't heard figures of their size for some time. I'm just looking at Wiki for them. Number of employees as of 2020 was 156,439.
156.
Yeah, that's a 2020 stat.
I mean, you look at just the business applications group went from like what, 1,000 to over 8 now, right? 8,000.
Yeah. But it looks like actually those stats don't take into account LinkedIn, Xbox Game Studios, Skype Technologies, or GitHub. They're all would have probably their own employee structure under them as well.
Yeah. Well, LinkedIn probably has a pretty good number of employees. I don't know how many GitHub would have, but yeah.
Yeah, and I thought, does anyone use Skype anymore?
I do. I still talk. I've got a couple of developers that I work with.
And you still use Skype?
Still use the regular old Skype client. As a matter of fact, there's still updates that come out for it.
Wow.
Had a couple updates.
I just find like I use WhatsApp for video calls, use it for pretty much everything. Yeah. Audio calls these days. It doesn't care what country you're in, although it's not so important anymore.
Now that I think about it, I think I only have one developer that I have that uses it, and that's probably just because that's how we started communicating and just haven't really. I find
it's just such a heavy piece of software nowadays that is often got more. It's harder to turn on and use than to do anything else. I mean, what I use it generally for, if I want to get in touch with Microsoft, and I don't want to call from my mobile phone because I'll incur international charges. I will then call via Skype because there's no international charges.
And what WhatsApp doesn't work the same way?
No, because WhatsApp, you still got to have them in as a contact and everything to validate that number works. Gotcha. They got to be on WhatsApp themselves, where Skype doesn't allow me to call any phone number I wish without that kind of limitation.
I got you. Yeah, Slack is good, Prashant. Obviously we use Slack for some things, but an MVP stuff. But where I'm using Skype still, it seems like it's just one-on-one things with a person where we're just having a one-on-one conversation. There's a bunch of tools that could probably have that with. Slack seems like might be a little overkill for just one-on-one single never-ending conversation. There's no need for grouping it or anything like that. You're just talking to one person. But that's the only purpose I would even see for Slack. And as you say, WhatsApp would replace that in a heartbeat.
Yeah. And the other one is that, Facebook Messenger. I wouldn't dream of calling any of my family members these days via a traditional phone call anymore. It's just instantly straight in because I can either text them on the fly, I can start a video call, or let's all my siblings can jump on a call. Someone can just hit the video button. Anybody that's available jumps on that call straight away, and we can have a whole, video chat anywhere, anytime. It's just so easy. You don't have to think of, who's online or who's offline or all that. That concept doesn't exist really in Messenger and WhatsApp. And I think because they're not hardware dependent, they're not only an iOS product or only a Android product. It just works wherever anybody is, type thing.
Well, and think whatever you want about Facebook. Everybody is on it, whether they're active on it or they go there often or use it or have Messenger open is a different story. But
I think a lot of people might not use the traditional Facebook page and things like that, but they definitely use Messenger.
Yeah.
I
haven't used it. But then my ex-wife, when we met, I had about 5,000 Facebook connections or whatever you call them in Facebook at the time over business for years. And the first thing she noticed was there were a lot of females in there. So She wanted me to delete them. And I told her, I said, hey, I don't even use it. So knock yourself out. And she spent, I don't know, it took her like a couple of weeks to actually delete everybody in my Facebook other than my direct family. So my Facebook went down to like 8 from like
Wow.
5,000 to like 8. She just got rid of all of those people. But I mean, I was using it kind of like LinkedIn, it's just a bunch of people. I didn't know them all. It didn't matter. So, and I wasn't really using Facebook for that. So, well, looks like we've killed an hour here, Mark.
Yeah, and it's a happy Thanksgiving to all the US folks, of course, on the call this week that celebrated. I think a bunch of people in Canada also celebrate Thanksgiving, don't you?
Yeah, as well as Christmas and Happy New Year, because we won't see anybody until after either of those pass.
Won't see you till after that. And hopefully I'll get back to normal business next week and be able to do some work, even though the nights at the moment are very sleepless, or I take spots of sleep through the night.
Well, you'll get an hour a week. You'll get an hour a week back for the next month and a half.
Yeah, that'll be good.
All right,
Alrighty,
guys,
everybody, we'll see you next year.
We've enjoyed 2020. It's been fun doing it. We'll talk to you guys next